happy hump day from everybody here at Prime Sports World. On today's episode of the Prime, we're going to be giving you our Week 10 fantasy football rankings. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point. Helping right there, Israel Rivera, the CEO of Prime Sports World. Welcome into the show, my friend. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast as we are almost more than halfway done with the fantasy football regular season. Hopefully your team is primed to make a push for the playoffs. I was driving home from Ohio on Sunday afternoonish. I did not know Amari Cooper was hurt, and I had him in all of my starting lineups, and I did not remove him, and it cost me one matchup for sure.
Pick one, Mason Brooks. Oh, we got
Braylon Allen. Not close. I'm Jonathan Brooks. I'm not sure how much he's even going to play. I wouldn't start Jonathan Brooks. Jordan Mason. I think Chris McCaffrey's coming back. I'm going Braylon Allen for the New York Jets.
Braylon Allen too. You must be in a deep league, brother.
Yeah, I don't feel really great about Braylon. I don't feel good about any of those three guys.
Jonathan Brooks he's not even a thing. Chuba Hubbard is like,
Come on. But we appreciate the questions. Keep them coming. We'll answer them throughout the show. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We always appreciate some fan hang out with us while we go through the show as well. But how'd you do in fantasy this week?
I went undefeated. 3-0. 3-0, man. I put up points in our league. I put up points in my guy Big Mike's league. And I put up points in my other league with a bunch of NIU buddies that I'm in. And that's like my highest earning money league right there. I'm hold on. We're in week 10. I'm 8-1 in that league right now, leading the league in points. And bro, let me tell you who my wide receivers are. This is the league that I have Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and James Cook. And I got Austin Eckler off my bench. And I had Tyrone Tracy as well, but I let him go because I needed a wide receiver at one point. So I had picked up Jordan Whittington, and like Tyrone Tracy was picked up like right away by one of my other guys, and he used them for 1 week. And then once who's the backup for James Cook in Buffalo, young springy guy,
Ray Davis.
Ray Davis. Since Ray Davis was getting to start 1 week, this guy dropped Tyrone Tracy, and another guy picked him up and got a blessing. But let me tell you who my wide receivers are. Well, I was feasting with JSN last week, but my wide receivers are poo in this league I'm in. I don't even know how I'm surviving. I got Keenan Allen, Jordan Whittington, Gabe Davis, Romeo Dobbs, JSN. Like, if it wasn't for Derrick Henry having a career year, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook. I also have Brock Bowers as my tight end, who's the number one tight end in fantasy so far this year. And I also, it's a sleeper, it's a keeper league. So I got Jalen Hurts. I've been having Jalen Hurts for the last 3 years. But yeah, bro, my wide receivers are terrible. And JSN saved me last week. I mean, I put up so many points in that league. I'm excited because I was excited for how many points I put up.
I won all of my leagues this week except for in our league. I got beat by that Kareem Hunt touchdown at the end of the Chiefs game because Ed had Kareem Hunt. If that game had just ended, I would have beat him.
156.3 points in that league. And you know what? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I came back in our league. It might have been another league. It might have been another league that I came back in. But I came back. And I think I had, who was it that I had? I had Travis Kelce starting in our league, and I had came back because I was down in that league, and I had came back. I think I won. Let me see. I beat Commit Me, bruh.
Who's
that?
That's a friend of
mine. I was losing, and Travis Kelce had went over 100 yards in that game. I won 125.
I also had like 12 catches in that game too.
And I beat this guy by 6 points because of Travis Kelce. There you go.
Anyways, by the way, Mondo, that trade you made where you traded Aaron Jones and Dalton Kincaid for Evan Ingram and Josh Jacobs, I like that for you. I think Evan Ingram has a really high ceiling. I like that trade a lot for you. So kudos to you. Let's get into the rankings because that's what we're all here for. Let's talk about the quarterback position. I got Josh Allen at number 1. I just think he's due. He's been due, but he's going to continue to have strong performances there for the Buffalo Bills as they play up against the Indianapolis Colts. His defense, I know they were better against the Minnesota Vikings last week. They're not any good. Number 2, Lamar Jackson going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's just a good matchup there for Lamar. 3, Jalen Hurts. 4, Kirk freaking Cousins going up against New Orleans. They officially have nothing left to play for. 5, Sam Darnold going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 6, Brock Purdy. Look for that to be a kind of a shootout game there against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We see what their offense is capable there in Tampa Bay, and getting Chris McCaffrey back. Brock Purdy, I think, is a good fantasy option there at number 6. 7, Joe Burrow coming off 5 touchdown passes, but they're going up against the Baltimore Ravens, who just traded for a secondary piece with Darius White. I'm not sure how much he has left in the tank, but I think that's a good ad for them. Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins. Look at that offense he's going up against. Like, that defense is giving up some yardage there. Tua should have a pretty solid game. Going up against the Los Angeles Rams. We saw what Geno Smith did last week. And 6, Jared Goff, just the pinnacle of efficiency. He's thrown more touchdown passes than completions the last 6 weeks of the season. Number 10, Aaron Rodgers. I think he's back. I think he's going to be back to putting up big-time fantasy numbers with both those weapons there, along with Tyler Conklin at the tight end position. And then I got CJ Stroud. Yeah, I'm almost out on CJ Stroud. I mean, their offense hasn't looked the same without the weapons coming out in the wide receiving core, especially with Nico Collins. I think may or may not come back this week, but I think it's still kind of a toss-up, and obviously Stephon Diggs done for the year. 2, Matthew Stafford has had 2 back-to-back games where he's been pretty productive, at least later in those games. And then 3, Patrick Mahomes the second. We see a nice rapport there with him and DeAndre Hopkins. Look for that to continue as they go up against the Denver Broncos, a team that's actually beaten him a lot of times over the last couple of years. And then Justin Herbert, 5,200. We saw what he did against the Cleveland Browns. He has a much better matchup this week going up against the Tennessee Titans. So I think if you have Justin Herbert, I think you're rolling the dice with him.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, they're primarily right now. It's crazy because Brandon Staley, it was reverse, right? He was like pass heavy, run second. Now this offense is run first, run heavy, pass second. And it's kind of like, we know how amazing Justin Herbert is, but it's taking a hit on him as a fantasy football player. So kind of sucks for owners that picked him, wherever they picked him in the draft. I think he was probably middle of the draft, maybe. He's one of the top quarterbacks, right? Top 10 quarterbacks picked in the draft. Yeah. So, it's it kind of sucks a little bit, but I'm glad to see Justin Herbert on a winning team finally. Well, not finally, but
Yeah, again.
Yeah, again, you know what I mean? Anyways, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, top 2. We saw the matchup last time, right? 7 touchdowns, 1 interception between both of those guys. I think both of those guys threw for over 700 yards between each other.
Yeah, they did.
It was pretty ridiculous. It was pretty ridiculous. I think that's the same thing that we're going to see in Baltimore again this week. And number 3, Jalen Hurts, who's just been absolutely phenomenal last couple of weeks. He's been getting it done with his legs primarily. Last week he had 70 rushing yards as well, a rushing touchdown. He had 4 passing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. 5 total touchdowns on a game. You can fact check me there if you want. Josh Allen at number 4, Sam Darnold at 5. Yeah, I like that matchup with Sam Darnold as round out my top 5. Going up against Jacksonville, their defense just gives up a lot of big plays, a lot of yards through the air. So that one could possibly get ugly, especially if the defense starts clamping up on Jacksonville. Yeah. And number 7, Brock Purdy. 8, Jaden Daniels. He is the truth. I'm stamping it. He's probably top 10 quarterback the rest of the way. He's just so phenomenal. He gets better with every single snap.
The only reason I agree with you, he's been awesome, but I think that Steelers defense is going to give them some fits. I think the offensive line for the Commanders is also super overrated. I think this could be one of those games where he just doesn't have a virtuoso, as you used to like to say.
And, well, you can also point to hey. Hey, bro. Hey, let me say this, y'all. If you guys, that's one of those jokes, man. You guys have had to watch us for a few years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny as hell, bro. Anyways, yeah, Jaden Daniels, all you gotta do is he's got those injured ribs, man. Nobody's really hit those things in the last couple games since he injured them a couple weeks ago. So maybe this is the game where Pittsburgh gets to him a little bit and he kind of affects his throwing motion. At number 9, I got Patrick Mahomes. I loved. I mean, as they start to get DeAndre Hopkins more involved in the offense, this offense is gonna. I mean, they're undefeated. It kind of feels like they shouldn't be undefeated.
Like they're undefeated, but they haven't played well. Like
it's like it's so weird. It's like the defense this year is like, well, even the last couple years has really held their own and carried this offense. But I think as DeAndre Hopkins starts getting more involved in the offense, I think you'll start to see some more top 8 performances, top 10. I definitely got Patrick Mahomes in my top 10 this week. And then Tua Tagovailoa, I talked about him yesterday. I think Tua coming back, obviously, Jalen Waddle and they got Raheem Mostert back a couple weeks now already. He's getting healthier. Obviously, Tyreek Hill. I think Tua is going to put up some top 10 performances as we, get down along in the season. He's got to, because they've only got how many wins? 2 wins on the season. Yeah. So he's got to play well in order for them to be successful down the stretch. And then I'm outside looking, and I got Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, who he would actually be a top 10 quarterback if they weren't blowing teams out, all the time. I mean, they just, they love to run the football, but I feel like Jared Goff can do so much more through the air if they just weren't blowing teams out consistently. And then Kyler Murray against the Jets. I like Kyler Murray, his running ability. And then my cheap option in FanDuel is Cooper Rush at 6,500. I know he's going against the Philadelphia Eagles, but they are at home, and Cooper Rush has a lively arm, and I think he's good for 1, and this is 1. So
I don't trust Cooper Rush at all. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, no CeeDee Lamb, possibly.
Yeah, possibly no CeeDee Lamb.
But I think there's gonna be Cooper Rush is a guy that, I mean, he played well when Dak Prescott was out.
He was okay.
Right?
He was all right. He
played well. He played well. 6,500. I'd roll the dice.
From those quarterbacks, let's talk about them rock toters. Let's switch over to your running backs.
Yeah, man. The top 2, man. Saquon Barkley with one of the most amazing football moves you'll ever see last week. But he ran for 150 yards last week. And how many touchdowns? 3 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he only
150.
2, but it was
2? I think it was 2. 150 yards.
It was a good day at the office if you are Saquon Barkley, or if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, or if you own him in fantasy.
It was a great day at the office for Saquon Barkley. At number 2, I got Derrick freaking Henry. He's been the best running back in football. He's probably the offensive player of the year, because the MVP will probably be going to his teammate, Lamar Jackson, even though Joe Burrow's got something to say about that. And Josh Allen, obviously, has got something to say about that too. But I do think Lamar Jackson is your favorite to win MVP, and Derrick Henry is good enough to be offensive player of the year. And then number 3, Bijan Robinson. He's looked amazing in his offense, especially with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. He's just looked like a whole different. I mean, we know what he was like last year. He's a rookie, but he's just taking it to another level this year. And then, Tyler Algier, I'll talk about him in a second. Having Tyler Algier kind of, taking off some of those reps from him, getting him some breather, having him be fresh, because he's a very electric player, right? So he needs some rest, in between some drives, and it really, you could really see how fresh he is in games, especially when you give him the ball in the passing game. And then number 4, I got Joe Mixon. He's been running all great. And then in top 5, and around my top 5, I got Jahmyr Gibbs. And then I got Kyron Williams, Devin A-Chain, and welcome back, young man, Christian McCaffrey, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have him right there. Me and David are almost close. He's got him at 7. I got him at 8. I think Christian McCaffrey, this is what the San Francisco 49ers have been wanting and needing, is Christian McCaffrey. I think he has. I also think
Tampa Bay is a good opponent to bring him back. I mean, we saw what Kareem Hunt did last week against this particular defense, and especially in the running. I mean, he could have a similar, if not more, impactful game than Kareem Hunt did. And I think they insert him right back into the starting lineup. Jordan Mason, I think, will be an afterthought.
You know what's interesting is in San Francisco, there were opportunities for Kansas City to use Kareem Hunt more in the passing game. They just don't use him enough in the passing game, which is interesting because he's a great pass catcher out the backfield. But definitely Christian McCaffrey, they are going to use him out the backfield. So those linebackers are going to have to be very well against the San Francisco 49ers. And at number 9, I got Breece Hall. And then round out my top 10 is Tyrone Tracy. Me and David are right there. Tyrone Tracy, top 10. He is the only reason him and Big Dexter Lawrence in the middle are the only reasons why I watch the New York or in Malik Neighbors.
You don't watch him for Malik? I mean, Malik Neighbors has been awesome this season.
So. I know. But Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors, and Big Dexter Lawrence in the middle, who's leading the league and he's number 2 in the league in sacks.
Yeah,
number 9, 9 sacks at the defensive tackle position. It's crazy. And then I'm outside looking in. I got Aaron Jones, James Cook, and Kareem Hunt. Shout out to Kareem Hunt. I highlighted him yesterday as one of my game balls of the week yesterday because he's come back to the Chiefs and he's fit in seamlessly. Had 100 yards in the game-winning touchdown. Then my cheap option in FanDuel is Tyler Algier at 5,900 against the Carolina Panthers. The Falcons ran almost. Well, Tyler Algier had 100 yards and Bijan Robinson almost eclipsed 100 yards. But the game was such out of reach, right? Well, I think that these two guys can get 100 yards each against the New Orleans Saints this week. Cheap option, 5,900.
Moving over from your running backs, let's talk about mine for a second. And I'm starting my number 1 with the king, Derrick freaking Henry. Look for him to have a massive game against the Cincinnati Bengals. 3 touchdowns probably for the King Henry when it's all said and done. Number 2, Kyren Williams. Yeah, I'm still really high on Kyren Williams. I like how they use him in this offense for the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, he's been awesome. Saquon Barkley, number 3. Yeah, I think the Dallas matchup. I think this is a better Dallas is like the front line is a little bit better than I think people give him credit for. I think they'll limit Saquon Barkley a little bit, but not limit him enough for it'll matter. He's still number 3 on my list. For James Cook, I think they really found something in the running game there for Buffalo. They found if we run the football with James Cook, this offense cooks at an even more efficient rate. Number 5, Joe Mixon. He's been everything that the Houston Texans could have asked for and more in this offense. 6, Breece Hall for the New York Jets. 7, Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, I think that he's going to be back full go for the 49ers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 8, Jonathan Taylor. Not crazy about the Colts offense with Joe Flacco at the helm, or really anybody at the helm at this point in the NFL season. But the Buffalo Bills in the past have been a team that gave up yards on the ground. Jonathan Taylor is still a top flight running back. If you got him, start him. Roll the dice with him. 8, Bijan Robinson. Yeah, a little bit concerned about Tyler Algier eating into his touches a little bit there. And then Atlanta Falcons potentially getting up real big in Carolina. So they won't need Bijan Robinson to have that workload. So he's at number 9. 10, Tyrone Tracy. If you added him as a waiver option so far this season, he's been money for you as a member of the New York Giants. And then my outside looking in, I got Alvin Kamara for the New Orleans Saints. Even though their season is probably just about done as they started trading off some pieces yesterday. But Alvin Kamara should still have some solid value for the New Orleans Saints. And then Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. Number 3, J.K. Dobbins for the Chargers going against the Tennessee Titans. J.K. Dobbins, kudos to you, young man, for bouncing back off those injuries, back-to-back seasons on the IR. He's been really good this season for the Chargers. And then my sneaky and daily, Trey Benson, 4,800. Got a touchdown last week. And then Roshan Johnson for the Chicago Bears. Both those guys, if they get into the end zone at 48 and 4,600 respectively, pretty good value at the running back position in daily.
I like it.
From the running back position, let's talk about them pass catchers. Let's talk about them wide receivers. My number 1 guy, it's probably going to be your number 1 guy for the remainder of the season, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, going against a terrible secondary there in Jacksonville. And then number 2, I got Malik. Will he be my neighbors? I just like how they've used him in this offense. He has the target share is through the roof. His catches, like when he plays, he has over double-digit catches a lot of times. Malik Neighbors has been everything the Giants could have asked for, even though the quarterback play hasn't been everything they could have asked for. It's in the last time that Daniel Jones threw a touchdown in MetLife Stadium, the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls since then. So, and then I got the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has not dropped a pass when he was targeted by Jared Goff, I think in the end zone in the last like season and a half or something crazy like that. Number 4, A.J. Brown. Yeah, he banged up a little bit in that game last week. I think he had to leave the game, came back. He's going to be awesome for the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Dallas Cowboys. 5, Jamar Chase. Yeah, I think that's going to be a shootout there between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. 6, Tyreek Hill. I think he gets kind of back into form going up against the Los Angeles Rams, who don't have the best secondary in the world. 7, Zay Flowers, kind of his coming out party last week for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, a high-scoring game against those two teams, I think. 8, Devontae Adams got his first touchdown as a Jet last week. Look for them to continue that chemistry. 9, Deebo Samuel Jr. of the San Francisco 49ers and Cooper Kupp rounded out my top 10. And then my outside looking in, Drake London, which kind of feels disrespectful to have Drake London this low, even though I have him at 11. But because he's just been a touchdown machine this season. But it was kind of the argument I made last time when these two teams played. This would be a game that the Falcons win easily. Drake London doesn't have to get into the phone booth and be the best receiver on the field to win this game. And then Terry McLaurin, my outside looking at number 2, and number 3, DeAndre Hopkins. We saw what this two combination between Patrick Mahomes and Hopkins is capable of going up against a Denver team that gave up 41 points last week against the Baltimore Ravens. So I would be cooking. If you're a DeAndre Hopkins owner, I would be salivating at the mouth at the prospect of that matchup. And then I got Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Naylor, and Sterling Shepard at 5,100, 4,200, and 4,100. Respectively, as my sneaky and daily options, especially Jalen Tolbert. If CeeDee Lamb does not play, he is a must start.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. And I mean, you can see, I'll get to my matchup. There's
same thing with Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard, yeah. Regardless, he's a must start at 4,100. Like, he is wide receiver 1 there for Tampa Bay. He's super involved in the passing game. He's the only wide receiver that Baker Mayfield seems to have any rapport with whatsoever. 4,100 for Sterling Shepard for a guy who's going to get double-digit targets is must-start material.
Especially in the second half. We saw what he was able to do in the second half. I think you saw something there. And you have to find somebody outside of Cade Otton and, Rachaad White out the backfield. Because I did mention yesterday on the review show or the preview shows for Week 10 is that, Tampa Bay is doing a good job at utilizing 3 running backs, Bucky Irvin, Sean Tucker, and Rachaad White. And Rachaad White's obviously the clear-cut guy out the backfield in passing situations. So, when, and Cade Otton's obviously the number 1 target when, outside of, the 2 injuries because of the 2 injuries that happened to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So, so Sterling Shepard is definitely a guy that you should be looking out for when he comes to picking up off the waiver wire. My number 1 guy is Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's been on fire. And then his college teammate, Jamar Chase, who I think will have another big game against the Baltimore Ravens this week. And then Tyreek Hill, right on my, in my top 3, I think. Having Tua Tagovailoa with him, I think they go against the Rams this week. Correct. So, that's going to be a game that, the Rams secondary isn't that's the strongest, right? We just saw JSN rip them for 180 yards, 180 yards, something crazy like that, right? So Tyreek Hill is prone to do something similar. So I like Tyreek Hill as a top 3 guy. And number 4, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's literally been a catching machine the last 3 weeks or so for Jared Goff. And then round out my top 5 is Puka Nacua. I
don't expect him to get ejected from another game for the rest of his career.
So. Yeah, that was so odd, man. Yeah, no, I mean, you do have to eject him with the punches and stuff.
Yeah, you got to throw a punch in the NFL game.
Yeah, that was crazy. Anyways, then number 6, I got Malik Neighbors. He had some he had some drop passes, but I mean, man, obviously, man, that guy he's an excellent route runner. He's ahead of his time when it comes to, I mean, he feels like he's a veteran out there running routes for Daniel Jones. I mean, Daniel Jones could just, get him the football properly. Or if he had a adequate quarterback, I think his fantasy value would be a lot higher, but he gets a lot of targets. At number 7, I got Zay Flowers, who's been, on a tear the last 3 weeks or so. Well, at least in 2 games out of 3 weeks. Zay Flowers.
Last week for damn sure.
Yeah, that last week for damn sure. Yeah. And then at number 7, I got Garrett Wilson. 8, Devontae Adams. 2 teammates back to back. They got equal fantasy value. Garrett Wilson with those 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams with the 1 touchdown to put. Godly, I forgot who the hell the Jets were playing that day. Houston Texans. Yeah, to put them away. In the fourth quarter, and then I'm outside. And then around the top 10, I got Cooper Kupp, and then I'm outside looking in. I got Drake London, Deebo Samuel, and yes, I'm optimistic that Nico Collins could probably play against Detroit this week. Okay, even though I know he hasn't practiced, but I'm optimistic that Nico's gonna give it a go at some point. I think they're going to activate him, and he will be available to play for the Houston Texans. So I got him on the outside.
According to a Houston beat reporter, Nico Collins passed all the hamstring tests, has no setbacks. Probably going to play.
Probably going to play. He just hasn't practiced this week. So I have him in my lineup. So if you're a Nico Collins owner, put him in your lineup. Wait till about 11:15, 11:30. Look, check all the reports. I mean, golly, they play Sunday night.
Yeah.
So
I think that's kind of the risk you run. Like, you better have somebody. Like, you better have somebody in the Ram game. You can, like, Demarcus Robinson, that you can just plug and play, or Trent Sherfield if he's still in Miami. I don't know.
With me, I'm just rolling the dice.
Reynolds, if Josh Reynolds is playing, if you got shot a couple weeks ago.
I'm rolling. I'm rolling the dice with Nico Collins. Regardless of the fact, and honestly, in my league, I'm trying to pull it up here. I think I have an adequate backup for Nico. I got I don't know. I don't have an adequate backup. I got Gabe Davis. That's not an adequate backup at all. So yeah, I better go into the waiver wire and pick something up. Anyways,
I would pick up DeMarcus Robinson, and have him as the guy.
In our league, David, I got Nico Collins started because I got him in 2 leagues. In our league, David, I have Xavier Worthy as a backup wide receiver. That's it, because everybody else is on a bye. And so, I better have somebody.
But the problem is with Xavier Worthy and Gabe Davis in that scenario, right? Like, those guys you're going to have to already pull the trigger on that before you even know if those guys are going to be a go or not.
Yeah, I know.
Nico Collins is going to be a legit game time decision. Like, you need to pick if anybody else is in this scenario, like, you need to pick up somebody who's on Detroit, who's on the Rams or on Miami, where you can literally just swap them out.
Yeah, and definitely, I'm not picking Xavier Hutchinson because he gave me an offer in my one league that I scored 156 points in. So hey, look. Check it out. Anyways, and then my cheap option in FanDuel, I got Kevontae Turpin at 5,600. Because why not? I don't think CeeDee Lamb's going to play. Obviously, David talked about Jalen Tolbert, but no Brandon Cooks at all either. So those 2 guys, Kevontae Turpin, Jalen Tolbert with Cooper Rush, I think he'll be just slinging all the way around. Kevontae Turpin and break one.
Moving on from the wide receivers, let's talk about them bulkier catchers. We're talking about the tight end position.
Yep. Travis Kelce, number 1, because Brock Bowers isn't in playing this week. Okay. I'm standing on that rock. Brock Bowers is number 1 fantasy tight end. He's number 1 tight end in the league right now. But Travis Kelce, he said, hey, shut up last week. Had 100 yards. So okay, he just missed the touchdown. But he's number 1 on my list. George Kittle at 2. Trey McBride 3. Cade Otton is a top 5 tight end this year. He didn't start out the year that way, but he's gonna finish the year that way.
100%.
Top 5 tight end.
100%.
And then right on the top 5 is Evan Ingram, who's slowly just coming. I know he had a slow game last week, but the last 2 weeks. But he's still a guy that, he's dangerous, man. Super athletic. They put him in different positions, man, all over the field. At number 6, I got Kyle Pitts. 7, TJ Hawkinson, who had 4 targets last week, caught 3 balls. They're slowly easing him in. I think he'll have a higher volume this week. So I like TJ Hawkinson be top 8 tight end. Number 8, I got Dalton Kincaid. 9, Sam Laporta. And then round out my top 10 is Jake Ferguson, who should be a safety blanket or a safety valve for Cooper Rush in this game versus the
Eagles.
My bad. Sorry about that. Anyways, and then cheap option. And then my outside looking in, I got Mark Andrews, Mike Gesicki, and Cole Kmet. And the reason why I got Cole Kmet, I know Cole Kmet's been
terrible last 2 weeks.
Terrible. Well, he's not terrible.
His usage has been terrible.
He's not terrible, but I think every time the media, Chicago media, gets to talking about Cole Kmet, why we're not using Cole Kmet, what's wrong with Cole Kmet, he always seems to have a big game the next week. It's like they're listening to the media and they're just like, okay, we got to get Cole Kmet the ball because everybody else is saying we got to get Cole Kmet the ball. So I think Cole Kmet is a possible top 10 fantasy tight end this week. So yes, I'd roll it with,
I hope you're right.
Yes. And then my cheap option in FanDuel is Zach Ertz at 5,000, who's been sneaky good for Jaden Daniels in the Washington Commanders.
Moving on from your tight ends, let's talk about mine. And I got Cade Otton as my number one tight end. His usage in that offense right now is just absurd. And look for him to continue to have that kind of usage as long as nobody else is available. 2, Trey McBride. Yeah, he's just been awesome for the Arizona Cardinals so far this season. And then 3 and 4, 2 reliable pass catching options, Travis Kelce and George Kittle. 5, Evan Ingram. Especially now that Christian Kirk is done for the year, I expect Evan Ingram to have that even more of that target share than what he had before. 6, Mark Andrews. A lot of people wrote off Mark Andrews earlier this season. He said not so fast. He's been the tight end to own in Baltimore over the last 3 weeks, as Isaiah Likely has been kind of phased out of the offense almost a little bit there. And it probably will even get worse now that they traded for Deontay Johnson. So, you have Bateman, you have Flowers, you have Deontay Johnson, you have Mark Andrews. There's a lot of mouths to feed there for that Baltimore Raven offense. I just don't see the target share there for Isaiah Likely moving forward. 7, Dalton Kincaid. Probably still pass catching number 1 there for Buffalo, as I'm not sure what Damari Cooper's status is going to be. And I have no idea what Keon Coleman's status is going to be. Both of them dealing with wrist injuries. So I would keep an eye on both of their availabilities heading into Sunday afternoon football. 8, Sam Laporta. Yeah, he's been awesome so far this season. They use him in all sorts of ways, gadget plays and stuff. So continue rolling the dice with him. Hunter Henry seems to be kind of an escape valve for Drake May. Has been good the last few weeks. And then Kyle Pitts. I just don't trust him, man. It's like every 1 week he'll be awesome. Next week he's terrible. I'm just glad I don't have to. I don't own him in a single league, and because I have to start him. I drafted Kyle Pitts to be my starting tight end, but he's been so frustrating this season. I can't put him any higher than this. Then my outside looking in, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, who will probably never have two touchdowns and 100 yards receiving in a game again. But kudos to him last week for getting into the end zone twice as a member of the Cincinnati Bengals. And then my sneaky and dailies, Tyler Conklin at 3,400. Seems to have a good rapport there with Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
And then switching to the other side of the football field, we're going to swing over to that defensive rankings. And my number 1 defense is the Philadelphia Eagles going up against Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys without their best offensive weapon potentially and no running game whatsoever to speak of. And this has been the Eagles defense, especially Mitchell. His first name is escaping. They were corner out of Toledo.
Quinyon Mitchell.
Quinyon Mitchell has been incredible so far this season, at least over the last few weeks. As this defense is humming for the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Denver Broncos. They added this defense for Kansas City is just awesome. 3 Chargers going up against Tennessee. This offense for the Titans has given one up to every single team they played so far this season. They've thrown bad picks regularly, so look for that to continue. Buffalo Bills going up against Joe Flacco in the Indianapolis Colts, and then the New York Football Giants. I think they have been getting pressure over the quarterback every single week, and I think it's a pretty favorable matchup that they have here against the Carolina Panthers, as the Carolina hasn't really shown that they're any good. And then I got the San Francisco 49ers going up against Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield has thrown a lot of picks over the last few weeks. Look for San Fran to take advantage of that. The Detroit Lions going up against the maybe Nico Collins-less Houston Texans as they continue to get pressure on the quarterback. And they did trade for Zadarius Smith yesterday. I like that addition in that defense. And then the Minnesota Vikings going up against the I just mentioned
Minnesota's going against Jacksonville.
Jacksonville Jaguars, and Trevor Lawrence has become the new Phillip Rivers, where he'll give you one every single week. And then I got the Jets at 2,900. I think that's a defense that could be underrated going up against an Arizona Cardinals team that kind of is Jekyll and Hyde. There are some games where they look the part of a potential playoff team. And then we saw that clunker they threw up against the Commanders. I think we could see one of those kind of outcomes for the New York Jets this week.
I like that New York Jets one. Yeah, man. Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell has been amazing. I don't have the Eagles at number 2. I at number 1. I have them at number 2. But yeah, my number 1 fantasy defense is the Chargers, man. They picked off Jameis Winston 3 or 4 times last week. Yeah. They're going against that's his name, Mason
Rudolph
from the Tennessee. Mason Rudolph, from the Tennessee Titans. I think they could do something similar. And I picked the Chargers up. I picked them up last week. In my, I'm totally white here. Oh no, okay, here I go. I picked them up last week and they paid dividends for me. So I like the Chargers.
I think they had like 21 points, fantasy points.
Yeah, they were amazing last week. At number 3, I like the Kansas City Chiefs. At 4, I like the Buffalo Bills. And at 5, I like the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, also all those teams. Look, you're going against Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco. You're going against Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't been that great. You're going against a rookie in Bo Nix. You're going against a backup in Cooper Rush, and you're going against a backup in Mason Crosby. So all those are great matchups for those teams. Right there to start off the bat. And then my outside looking in, I got the Chicago Bears.
It's the New England Patriots.
Going up against another rookie in Drake May at home. It should be a get right game, even though Drake May's played pretty well.
Right.
Okay, I mean, he had the number 1. He had the touchdowns.
He threw 3 picks in that game or 2 picks. Like it was the only touchdown in that game he threw. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Oh yeah, we'll pump the brakes. It's all right. And then I got the Commanders and the Falcons. I think the Falcons eventually will probably be a little higher on this list instead of 8 on my rankings. Even though because they're going against the New Orleans Saints, who don't
fire their head coach.
Fire their head coach. Don't have any weapons on the outside. It's pretty much just Alvin Kamara or bust. I like the Atlanta Falcons this week. And then my cheap option in FanDuel is the Washington Commanders going against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though I know that Russell Wilson's played well, I think at home the Washington Commanders defense has been solid under Dan Quinn. They'll have a solid performance at 3,500. They're super cheap. I mean, one of the cheaper defenses to play this week. And so I'd roll the dice with the Commanders at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This may be a game where they frustrate Russell Wilson and he throws a couple picks and there we go. We had a 10+ point performance or more for the Washington Commanders. So depending on how many points Pittsburgh scores.
And then before we get up out of here, like we do every single week, do you know who the number 1 scorer in fantasy was the prior week, in week number 9?
It had to be JSN.
Jackson Smith-Njigba was the number 1 scorer in fantasy with 7 catches for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Good for 37 fantasy points. Yeah. Rounding out the top 5, Saquon Barkley, Davon Achane, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Hurts, and Zay Flowers in the top. I guess I said 6, but the top 6 there.
Top 6 there. I had on that one team, I had 2 of those guys. I had JSN and Jalen Hurts. So that's why I won my fantasy matchup.
And who will be the number 1 scorer in fantasy when this week is all said and done?
Man, number 1 scorer in fantasy is going to be Lamar Jackson. There we go. Point blank. He threw for 4 or 5 touchdowns. How many touchdowns he threw the last time against
4.
Cincinnati? 4 touchdowns, 380-some yards. And then I think number 2 will be Joe Burrow. That's it. That's all. That's all I'm going to say right there.
I'm taking
number 1 and number 2 will be both of them.
I'm taking Justin Jefferson going up against the the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's going to have 12+ receptions, maybe 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson's going to have a monster game at the wide receiver position. So
I like it. I like it like that.
But thank you very much for joining us. This has been our Week 10 Fantasy Football Rankings. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions, please drop them down in the comment section. I'll be going through those comments and giving you guys some answers if you leave those down in the comment section. I'm David Huppman, Israel Rivera right there. Izzy, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
Bringing
sir.
the heat. revving up the engines and taking all the way off, baby.
Absolutely. You guys all have a good weekend. Stay safe out there. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.